ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election.
And indeed he is, putting to bed all of the back and forth over the last 2 years about whether Joe Biden would be stepping down after one term in the presidency. No, he's running. He is running to finish the job. He says, it's a 3-minute ad. You can go online and see the full thing. There was a bit of inspiration, a bit of let's get it done, a bit of, as you can see this article, focus on the danger that is posed by Donald Trump and MAGA extremists. There was footage from January 6th, that sort of thing. But it's happening. We're there. Everyone buckle up. We don't know, everyone else who will be running either on the Democratic or the Republican side, but he is. And it wasn't guaranteed. Remember, he originally described himself during the 2020 campaign as a bridge, implying that he's a thing that gets you from one place to another, which doesn't especially make sense as a metaphor if you're gonna hold 2 terms in office, because that's what everybody does. Why are you using a fancy metaphor at that point? But apparently, according to sources, he is going to run again because of his antipathy for Mr. Trump, which, look, I get it. As well as his belief that he is the Democrat best positioned to keep Trump from regaining the White House. Okay, Trump is very hateable, almost uniquely hateable. And what politician doesn't think that they have the best shot of winning? So I guess that makes sense, but bear in mind that while there's already a lot of jokes about how old Joe Biden is, if he gets elected and if he finishes his second term, he will leave office 86 years old, which is 9 years older than Ronald Reagan was back in the day. And obviously there was a lot of talk about him at that point. So David Shuster, we're there, it's happening. What do you think?
Well, it's not inspiring, but again, this isn't a time when I think a lot of us want inspiring. I mean, look, I want inspiring leaders, but clearly Joe Biden is the safe choice. He's like the doctor with the mantra, do no harm. With Joe Biden, even if he is old, even if he can't think straight, even if he can't speak straight, he's taking a sort of lower profile in his presidency. And I think that's sort of working. And I think the American people have been convinced we'd rather have a lower profile than an extremely high profile controversial figure. So for Joe Biden, there was no doubt to me that he was gonna run. I think his own sort of pride and maybe his own level of narcissism was gonna fuel him going as long as his health was there. His health is relatively fine as far as we know. And I think he's figured out, look, I can take the shots. If people wanna make fun of my age, if people wanna make fun of me fumbling up the stairs, misspeaking, so be it. I feel like I've got the right policies. My issue is that, what about promises he made in the last campaign? Like, I don't know, raising the minimum wage to $15 or another step towards universal health care or trying to bridge the economic divide. I feel like we haven't really made progress, and maybe we should just forget about making progress on that on those things for the next 4 years. It's disappointing, but I suppose it's better than total anarchy and fascism.
Well, you probably summed up quite a few of the political ads that we're gonna see over the next year or so. It is true that obviously it is better than fascism, but it also, I mean, there are other options. We don't exist in a pure, clean binary. But yeah, so look, multiple things can be simultaneously true that might seem to be operating in multiple directions. And we probably, David, shouldn't acknowledge those different things because you're supposed to deliver a clean, easy to digest message of the news. We shouldn't acknowledge that, as you did, he made some very specific promises that he didn't get done. And more importantly than that, because of course, he's not unilaterally in control of everything. What he is in control of is how hard he appears to work to get them done. And for some of them, like the $15 minimum wage, everybody remember his round the country bus tour where he stumped for the need to raise the minimum wage? I don't remember that. I don't remember him really doing anything to raise the minimum wage. So not getting it done would be bad enough, but not seeming to really care that you didn't get it done is worse. And I'm sure everybody watching this can add more things to that list. Including,
well, I described it as uninspiring. Where are you, John? I mean, look, are you one of those people? And I have total respect for people who are like, look, I got to hold my nose for another 4 years. Joe Biden's not my choice. He's not inspiring. I'm not impressed. but it's, I suppose, better than the alternative. Is that where you come down?
Well, look, obviously, so I live in California, so my vote doesn't really matter either way. But that said, I also think that sometimes people in the media will sort of hide behind that. Like it's easy for me, I can vote for whoever the hell I want. I can vote for Grogu or whatever, and we're gonna be just fine. The result is gonna be the same. That said, I go with every election based on what I think the better result for the country and for progressives will be. Which means that I act certain ways in primaries, act certain ways in the general election. I want there to be a vigorous primary. I am still hoping that more people will announce. I'm hoping that the DNC will backtrack on what it seems to be a plan to not have any debates. And I ideally hope that he will be beaten by another Democrat. I also am not gonna lie to the audience. I don't think that as of today is very likely to happen. And if Biden and Trump, dear God, and we're gonna talk more about that in a minute, were to go against each other once again, I'm not gonna pretend to the audience that it isn't obvious which of those outcomes is better. It's obvious to me that it is better, although not great, to have Biden. And we can also acknowledge the things that Biden has done in his first term. He did get multiple big pieces of legislation passed, every one of which could have been better, but he did get a lot done. The IRA did pass, he did do some stuff for the climate. There are a variety of things. We briefly had a child tax credit, wasn't that nice? We can acknowledge those things, the good and the bad. If people watching find having to hold both of those things in their mind simultaneously to be distressing, there are people who will lie to you in a more convenient fashion if that's what you would prefer. You will be more comfortable with their rhetorical stroking of your hair and telling you that you're adorable. But anyway, it's gonna be a complex year coming up. It's not the outcome that I would want, and it's not done yet. But before we move on to more stuff about the race and a little bit of fun, and any other thoughts, David?
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, on that, I mean, I wish that Bernie Sanders had not ruled out running, even if Joe Biden announced that he would. I mean, I feel like there's got to be some method, some mechanism for Joe Biden being pushed during the Democratic primaries to say, okay, you couldn't get it done over 4 years, but how, given the divided Senate, the divided House, what do you do to try to tackle things like the income gap or minimum wage? There's got to be some process to get Joe Biden to focus on that. And I'm a little worried that if the Democrats all sit on their hands and nobody runs against them, that we don't really have that discussion. And I think that would be too bad.
Yeah, and he needs to be pushed. And I think he's shown that he can in some ways be pushed, only pushed so far, as we pointed out. There are things that he did not get done as president. And I continually will acknowledge what you just did, that he can want lots of stuff and not get it done. But I also think that like the two hypothetical worlds of the 2020 election being won by Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders, in both of those cases, you have Kyrsten Sinema and you have Joe Manchin.
Right.
And maybe the legislative outcome might be similar, but I do not think that Bernie Sanders, I don't think that he would have taken some of those losses as casually, but I also think that I don't think that Biden is as genuinely bothered by some of the losses. I think that he finds them to be losses to groups that he promised to, rather than deeply held convictions that he's been working towards for decades. They are different men, of course. Really fast, let's acknowledge that although this probably has nothing whatsoever to do with Joe Biden, on his website they're having a little bit of fun. The 404 page, when you go to like a broken link on his website, has Dark Brandon, so that's a little bit of fun. And you can already buy a Dark Brandon t-shirt. It is unlikely that I will be rocking one of those, except potentially extremely ironically. For now, though, I have not purchased one.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.